Does this guy buy that? Republican governor of Mississippi, Haley Barbour. Think you've been rescued?
Well, Neil, I would be surprised if the president said that or said that the stimulus package was working like they planned it, because that's just so obviously inaccurate. President Obama is charming and charismatic. I've always said he could sell Fords to Chevrolet dealers, but he's not going to be able to convince the American people that this economy is going in the right direction. It's just so obviously not accurate. So I'll be surprised if he actually says that.
Or what did you make of the fact that Rahm Emanuel did?
Well, I would say, politicians got to trust the public enough to tell them the truth. And the public knows that we're still shedding jobs. They know this economy is still going down. I hope next month it turns up. I hope next week it turns up. We need for it to. But the fact is that hasn't happened yet. I hope it will.
Or because what they've been saying, Rahm Emanuel's comments notwithstanding, is that they're not as bad as they used to be. The numbers aren't as bad as they used to be. The monthly job losses are about, I think, 30% less than they used to be. They're still down, still more losses. What do you make of that? That this whole situation, notwithstanding with the 2.5+ million jobs lost since February and the double-digit unemployment and all of that for 15 states, that things are bouncing from their lows. I think that's what they're saying.
Well, if that's what they're saying, they're denying the obvious. Look, if you look at a graph of job loss, it has steepened since he's been president. I'm not trying to blame anything on him, but the fact of the matter is that the job loss has steepened in the last 6 months compared to the first year of the recession. I think most Americans recognize that this stimulus was an enormous amount of spending for which thus far we've had very, very little result. Like I said, I hope it gets better. I hope we hit bottom and bounce back next week. But I don't think very many people anticipate that that's going to happen.
You know, Haley, a lot of people do not realize that after Katrina, Mississippi actually suffered far more damage. And you got a fraction of the federal help. Yet your state rebounded much more quickly. No stories of trailers that were sort of abandoned and parked in mud that were supposed to eventually be homes for hurricane victims. None of that happened in some of these Louisiana locales. And at the time you had said it might have been a lesson in well-intentioned but problematic big government, that sometimes too much is too much. Now we've got help coming on steroids. What do you think about where this is going, not only in stimulus that is yet to go be parceled out, but everything that's coming after it?
Sure, stimulus, omnibus, you name it, jillions of dollars for Wall Street. Neil, I can't believe that if the government is spending $2 or $3 trillion in a relatively short period of time, as is the case, trillions, I can't see how that can possibly not produce some jobs. But we are spending such an enormous amount of money and we're getting so little in return. And I do think most Americans are rightly very, very concerned about this spending, ever-growing spending. They're concerned about the debt that we're taking on, and they're concerned about the enormous tax increases that are going to come with it. You've been talking today, I heard you talking to Chuck Grassley about health care. Small business is going to get clobbered. This is a catastrophe for small business people. They're going to get fined. They're going to get expenses and taxes beyond anything that they can survive. You know, we need to create jobs. Yet when you make it more expensive to employ people, what do you get? You get fewer jobs. So this, between the energy policy and the health care policy, the taxes, spending, and the regulation that goes with it, the huge energy tax, maybe that's why the stimulus isn't working.
Well, you know, there seems to be a trend, not among all governors, but some, I don't know where you are in this mix, but you know, Governor Rick Perry leading this effort to saying he'll call the shots when it comes to what federal dollars are parceled out in Texas or not. Governor Palin in Alaska with this sovereignty push before she steps down. Now, what do you make of that, where states are sort of pushing their own individuality and saying, look, cool it. We'll call the shots here, and we're very leery of you pushing all this stuff on us.
Well, this weekend it happens that the National Governors Conference met in Biloxi, Mississippi. Had about half the governors in the country there, and there is a huge, strong, bipartisan, virtually unanimous concern that the health care reform bill and the expansion of Medicaid in it is going to end up being a huge unfunded mandate for states, that states are going to get stuck with billions and billions and billions of costs to help pay for the federal government's wanting the government to run the health care system. And it wasn't just conservative Republicans like me. I believe virtually every Democrat governor there is very, very worried about unfunded mandates. I'm also worried about the taxes. And finally, and maybe most of all, I'm worried that they're trying to rush this through Congress before the American people know what's in it. Now, if the American people have a chance to really understand what is in the energy packages and in the health care package, I don't believe they have a chance. But I'm afraid that the Democrat leadership in Congress' goal is get this passed before people understand it.
You going to run for president?
Look, for this year and next year, I am focused on electing Republican governors. We've got two big races this year in New Jersey and Virginia. Republicans are heading the polls in both, but they're going to be very close. 37 governors races next year. And I think any Republican who's thinking about or worried about or focused on 2012 doesn't have his eye on the ball. We need to win in 9 and 10.
All right, because the guys in the White House now, at this point in the cycle, was seriously considering a run.
Well, that's the difference between me and him, I reckon. That's not the only one. But, yeah, I actually figured, honestly, that right now it's more important for the country coming back and for our party to come back and for conservatism to come back and freedom is the elections this year and next year.
All right. Haley Barbour, thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.